Welcome back. The next thing that I would like to implement is the My Profile functionality, and we will do that in multiple steps. So first of all, we want to get the user data in general to populate this top left corner here to display the username, and then also prepare at least the code that will display the image of the user. And when it comes to downloading images from the cloud, in our case, we're downloading it from storage here. Not yet, but we will do so in the future. And when we do that, it makes sense to work with a third-party library. In this case, it's the Glide one. So Glide is a fast and efficient open source media management and image loading framework for Android that wraps media decoding, memory, and disk caching. And this will make our life a lot easier when it comes to downloading images, right? So that's the idea here. Glide with my fragment, then load URL. So whether you want to crop it centered, whether you want to adjust it however, then the placeholder that you want to use, and then finally in which UI element you want to put it. All right, so that's what Glide does, and that's what we're going to use now. Therefore, let's go back to our code and start with the sign in user from our Firestore class. So we need to adjust it a little bit so that we can use it in multiple activities. So let's go to our Firebase or Firestore class here. So I have this function which is called sign in user, and I need to make minor changes to it. So for example, in the on success listener, currently I'm running sign in success, and that is the function in our sign in activity. Okay, so this basically, this part here only works if the activity that calls this is a sign in activity, or at least if the activity that is passed in here. So we're passing in activity, which is the sign in activity. And I want to replace this with a basic activity so that it can not only be a sign in activity, but it could also, for example, be a main activity or something like that. So let's import activity here. And then here we need to check if the activity is of a certain type. So when activity, and now it becomes interesting. So is a sign in activity, then sign in activity, this one, then run some code. And the code that it should run, well, it's the same that we had before. Okay, so now it's going to work because now it is a sign in activity, this activity. But otherwise, if, for example, it is a main activity, so if is main activity, then run some other code. So in this case, run a method called activity.update navigation user details. This method will also need to know who is the logged in user. So we pass in the logged in user. Now, of course, we need to create this function in our main activity. So let's go ahead and create it. So fun update navigation user details, and it needs some information here, right? To be more precise, it needs a user object. So here, user of type user. So let's see here, logged in user, by the way, it's of type user. We transfer the document, which is, if you recall, this document in our database. So here, users is the collection, right? And then we have the document, which is the user. So we download this user and we make an object from it, which is of type user, which is the class that we prepared. So which is this model that we developed quite some videos ago. All right, so here we have the ID, name, email, image, and so forth. Okay, so now we get a user. So let's import user, and this is not the Firebase user, but the Project Manage or Project Manage user. And in here, I want to load the image from the user, right? So user has the information about the image. So it's this one. And I want to set it to be the image, which is inside of our nav header main. So here we have this image view, which currently doesn't have a name. So let's give it a name. ID nav user image, something like that. All right, so it's inside of our nav header main, which is basically this image here. So I want to be able to access it and adjust it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm saying, okay, give me the ID now. And now in our main activity, in update navigation user details, I want to update the image and also maybe the text here at the bottom so that it says the user name. Okay, and if you want to do that, what you need to do is, of course, to use glide. So we saw glide just a second ago. This is the code that you will need. So let's just use that. So let's put it in here. We need to, of course, add the dependency. So let's go over to our Gradle. Here, resources. It's this one. Well, actually, it's the Gradle scripts here. Build Gradle and add another implementation. So the one that they say here. So add this implementation. And also this annotation processor. So let's copy both. And let's add them in here. So com bumtech glide and com bumtech glide compiler. All right, so those two. Let's sync it so that we can now use glide. So the class glide, which will then of course make our life easier. And now let's go back to our main activity. Let's see if glide now responds positively. So still it wants us to create a new abstract class. Now we can import it. It takes a little while. So now we need to say which fragment we want to use. Well, in our case, we don't want to use a fragment, but we want to use it in a specific activity. So we're going to use it in this activity, which is the main activity. Then we need to load a URL, and it's going to be our user image, which is going to contain later on a URL where the image is stored. Then we want to center crop it, that's fine. And we assign a placeholder. So we will need a placeholder image here. And then finally, in which image view we want to put it. So let's have a look what the name was. It was nav user image. So let's just put it in nav user image. Now let's add a placeholder. So I'm just gonna paste in an image to my resources here into the drawables folder, which is gonna be is IC user placeholder. Okay, well, it was there already. That's good. So we have this IC user placeholder. You probably also have it if you dragged it in. So let's just use this one, IC user placeholder. All right, so this is going to set the image currently for a placeholder, but later on with the image that we have in the user object. So for example, if I want to use this image here, let me copy the link, and really this is just for demonstration purposes. Don't use it like that. And then here, I'm just gonna edit the string with the value of this Homer Simpson link so that we will have an image now for me. This is going to be Dennis Panuta or dennis@gmail.com. We'll have this image now so we can use it for testing purposes. So that it hopefully will not use the placeholder, but it will actually load it from the user image. Okay, so that is just the user image. Now we also want to set the text, and now let's do that. TV username text equals user.name. And then at that point, we can go to the onCreate function. And here we will just call this function that we just prepared. So Firestore class dot sign in user. And here we pass in this activity. Okay, so now the sign in user is this one, right? The function that we had before, but we just adjusted. So now it's gonna work accordingly. So if we sign in as well within the sign in activity, then it's just gonna use the sign in success function. Otherwise, it's gonna create or use this function that we just created, which just gonna set the image and the user name text. So this TV username, by the way, is this username here, which currently I think is empty. Yeah, it's empty. There's nothing in there. So we want to change that. And then there's one more thing in the on failure listener. I would like to also make sure that I'm at one point calling the hide progress bar. So here, activity dot hide progress bar, or progress dialog it was. Now the thing is, in this case, I need to have the same structure as we had here, because it doesn't know that the activity is of a certain type. So in either case, I just want to run activity hide progress dialog. Even though this seems to be duplicate code, it's still necessary, right? And by the way, this should be inside of the Lambda expression body. Okay. So basically, when the activity is a sign-in activity, use the hide progress dialog, and when it's a main activity, use the hide progress dialog. In both cases, it's just going to call this function, which is inside of our base activity, but still, at that point, it doesn't know that what kind of activity it is, and that's why we need to define it specifically here. And by the way, if we now test it, what we will see is that we have this beautiful Homer Simpson image here. It's cropped centrally, and we also have the username here. All right, so let's test it. Let's go over here and replace the name from Dennis to Homer. And now update this and go back to our application, sign out and sign in again. So let's sign in. Email is still the same, it didn't change, right? And password is also the same. So now we should see that it says Homer and the little image of Homer, even though the image is not perfectly positioned and everything, but that is something that you can, of course, define when developing it in here. So in your main activity and the update navigation function, so here you have multiple different options. Now, of course, if you want to play around with the values, you can see here download and set up docs page. There you find a lot more information. So this is a proper documentation that you have here. For example, transformations. You can see built-in types are center crop, fit center, circle crop. So these are the different options that they offer here. Of course, you can define your own if you want, but these are the ones that are available automatically. All right, so that is it for now. In the next video, we are going to prepare the profile screen. So just the activity with the UI, and then in the following video, we are going to add the functionality to also load the data into that UI. All right, but at this point, you already know how to do that, right? So you've seen it multiple times already. So if you feel comfortable with this and feel self-confident to start this, I would highly recommend to do this. Even if you don't feel self-confident and don't feel like doing it, I still recommend to do it, because I think this is the kind of stuff that will help you to really learn it completely. So really learn how to do it in the future. Just watching me is not going to be enough. All right. So please try it yourself and good luck with it. And thanks a lot again for still being part of the course. See you in the next video.